We talk constantly and enthusiastically about the animation we watch, as children and as adults. From the innovators of old to the budding voices of today, how universal such a medium is that can transcend generations and barriers to deliver experiences one can only dream of and to transport us into worlds beyond our own imagination. But what doesn't always get the same appreciation as your standard film or TV show are the bit-sized projects. Those whose purpose may be less ambitious in nature, but are still important in the general history and how they molded our media palettes for the rest of our lives. Some of it being in places we have all experienced at one point in time but never really thought twice about. And such a key example would be the one, the immortal, the sunny Sesame Street. Sesame Street needs no introduction. It has revolutionized children's entertainment ever since it premiered in 1969, and was a big contributor to the publicly funded childhood powerhouse that is PBS. A vehicle for Jim Henson to bring his Muppets to a wider audience than he ever had before at that time. And most of all, a unique showcase to make little commercial spots demonstrating basic concepts to the young ones watching, prepping them for the life ahead.
Hey, Bert, you know what things kids like to watch the most on TV?
I sure do.
What?
Puppets.
Oh, no, Bert. No.
Cartoons?
No, Bert.
Explosions?
No.
What?
I'll tell you, Bert.
Okay.
Commercials.
Commercials?
Naturally, with it being in the middle of such a transitory period for popular media, this proved to be quite a lucrative avenue for a bunch of small-time animators or even old veterans from the golden age looking for work. While the commercial-like vision did not entirely stick, that aforementioned philosophy is something that has stayed pretty consistent for much of the series' run. And I've always found it a bit of a fascinating world that, while certainly fondly remembered in many ways, isn't really talked about when it comes to the greater conversation of animation. So today, I'm going to cover a handful of highlight recurring artists from well over 30 years of history from this triumphant symbol of early development. Let's start with a rather prolific pair who were featured within the very first episode, Faith and John Hubley, the latter of which has had an extremely turbulent career. He started off as an art director on where else but the first slate of Walt Disney's animated features, only to then take his leave in the wake of the infamous animator strike of 1942, which he was a key participant in, afterwards spending some time animating for the Air Force and other industrial sorts. But what John would become best known for is his 5 years as the vice president and creative lead at United Productions of America, being principally responsible for a few of the hits that really put their avant-garde, almost postmodern style on the map.
Frankie's going to the jailhouse, and she ain't a-coming back, 'cause it's wrong to shoot with a Rudy toot-toot.
Only to then be fired because of communism. Yes, really. And to keep food on the table, he and his new wife Faith moved on to later, somewhat undercover projects, including TV commercials. So taking on an assignment like this was a pretty natural move for them. They did 2 segments in season 1, one psychedelic, dreamy looking piece on the letter E.
See me, eating a peach, sitting on my ego, chasing a beagle.
And a folksy upbeat song on the letter O.
He spoke to the goat who was eating a bowl of bones, potatoes, and soap.
They were then met with way more of an output for seasons 2 and 3, before lending their services instead to the Workshop's sister show, The Electric Company, making a brief return in season 8, before John's passing. As expected, their style of being really abstract and artsy really come through in their works. Sometimes you can have a cute piece about a penguin tap dancing an echo, other times there's a bit more cartooniness to it, where a telephone is being chased by a cat like it's a mouse.
Meow! Telephone?
And some of the drawings in it sure are drawings, alright. Or perhaps it can be something more extreme, like this demonstration of the word danger, bringing as much life as it can into a simple drawn word. And then there are the shorts where it's just telling a very simple but sweet message, like taking care of your cat, told with minimal dialogue and backed with a nice sweet flute tune. Even the way the girl is depicted brings to mind how someone of that age would draw her. There's such a consistent feel to the Hubley tunes, yet also so varied in what they can deliver. In many ways, it's kinda poetic that among the prominent animators on board at CTW was some influential guard from the Golden Age, carrying over those seasoned old-school sensibilities for everyone working with them and after them to evolve from. Yeah, you can't talk about old-school Sesame Street and not mention the unforgettable works of Bud Luckey. And if that name rings a bell to you, it's likely because where he would become best known is none other than Pixar. Yep, as the studio was getting off the ground for feature films, Bud was recruited to become a part of this groundbreaking venture, with such contributions as giving the Toy Story team the idea to make Woody a cowboy, directing the 2003 short Boundin',
Pink? Pink? Well, what's wrong with Pink?
voicing the characters of Rick Dicker and Chuckles, and regularly contributing art to all of the studio's works till his retirement in 2010. He died in 2018, a real legend. But 30 years before all that, Bud was known for indirect association with many a prolific TV project, but mainly in his commercial work, including with Jim Henson, whose long-standing connection got him his work at the Street. And in the early 70s, he wrote and animated a whole line of cartoons with these super memorable, simple but highly dimensional and highly expressive designs. Look at these two little cowboy snakes, for example. Look at the bounce in their emotions. Look at how much they're able to gesture despite their lack of limbs. Look at the way they stretch. It's all so much fun to watch. And of course, I have to mention the hilarious constant back and forth between the two.
Whoa, dude, you got right on top of the cactus. I told you to get next to. Well, I told you I didn't know what next to means. It means right beside of. Oh.
Of course, he was also able to get quite ambitious with the scenery as well. An entire song he helped bring to life that's about the size is all about comparing objects of increasing caliber.
Oh, the big becomes the little when you see it back a bit. The huge becomes a dinky, which is just the opposite of the larger that gets smaller. It never seems to quit. That's about the size of it.
And if the perspectives on display weren't already good enough, check out what happens when we get to the whole solar system. That solar flare in tune with the chord, the majestic flashes, the rotation of the planets, and of course a full circle return to Earth. Beautiful! But by far his frontliner was his own series of number-themed segments. The first few of which, numbers 2 through 6, all starred this country fiddler named Donnie Bud. These are fun little ditties for sure.
3 old bar hogs taking a nap, 3 Pekingese dogs going yap yap, 3 snapping turtles going snap snap snap, and they all live together on a fat lady's lap.
But then when we get to number 7, the strategy suddenly shifts to one-off songs that if anything are only more iconic. And for the best example, look no further than the ever-famous number 7 song itself, The Alligator King.
The fourth son tried to cheer him up with 7 lemon drops. The king said, "I'm sorry, son, since that Ruby episode, I just haven't got the chops."
We all know this one by heart. Great story, great visual comedy, great singing, great writing. One of the very first animations any generation who grew up on Sesame Street will think of, and for dang good reason.
Said the alligator king to his 7th son, "My son, you win the crown. You didn't bring me diamonds or rubies, but you helped me up when I was down."
And fun fact, this actually has one of the single longest lifespans of any animation in the series' history, continuing to be rotated up until 2006. That's how much it has stood the test of time.
7.
But if people don't first think of that, they may be first thinking of this.
She has 9 little eyes, all the same size, looking up, down, round, and straight ahead. She has 9 little holes in her turned up nose, and she snores when she goes to bed.
Or perhaps this little earworm, and my personal favorite of them all.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The ladybugs came to the ladybugs picnic.
Yeah, what I just went through may have been nearly his entire catalog for the show, but it's very much a quality over quantity case, as each one is nothing short of a true work of art. It's no wonder he wound up getting much more prestige decades later, and it's plain fascinating to see how people who shaped one point of your childhood can end up becoming a key part of another.
30 years ago, I used animation to teach kids their numbers, and now these kids are teaching me how to animate with numbers. So it was a good deal.
Another animator who didn't do too much for the show itself, but left a strong impact on the workshop and the industry as a whole, would be Jim Simon. He got a start in the industry by working with Ralph Bakshi at the age of 17, most notably on his Spider-Man series. Spider-Man! Right off the bat, his creative drive was so high that he not only found himself advancing through the ranks faster than his peers, but it wasn't very long before he set his sights on going into business for himself. As he himself put it,
I was turning out so much work they had to promote me, because I was earning more money than some of the full-fledged animators. But it got to the point that I was just too excited about the things going on inside my own head, which I could not release while working for someone else. So I borrowed $250, hired a lawyer to set up a company, did a couple storyboards on my own, but sticking with the Sesame Street vein of thinking, and marched back up there. And right off the bat, they had bought 4 of the 5 boards I had brought up.
Looking at the sorts made at this new studio named Want To Animation, you can undoubtedly see a lot of the roughness he inherited from working under such a creative madman, with characters that only resemble humans in the loosest sense and move in a really free-form, sketchy way, but still have their own abstract charm to them. They include a little girl planning to play in the snow with her new sled,
my rubber boots to keep my feet dry, my sweater and coat to keep me nice and warm, my scarf to keep me from getting a sore throat.
This hypnotic chant with a toot train, another short story on the girl celebrating her 6th birthday,
6, I'm 6, I'm 6, I'm 6 years old today, yay!
And, what else was there he made? Can you remember?
A loaf of bread, a container of milk, and a stick of butter.
Ah yes, that's it! The shopping list I think every kid growing up in the 70s could recite by heart, and still gets regularly referenced by both the show and all sorts of circles to this very day. And Jim wouldn't stop at just Sesame Street. He would also use his talent to create equally eye-catching works for the Electric Company and, outside CTW but still within PBS's walls, Vegetable Soup, even doing the opening for the latter. By the end of the 70s though, he would return to the studio system, working often in key roles on the following shows: Yogi Space Race, The Smurfs, Heathcliff, Mask, TMNT OG, Fox's Peter Pan and the Pirates, Doug, X-Men, Sonic SATM, Adventures from the Book of Virtues. And that's not even a complete list. I'm telling you, the stories some of these artists' portfolios can tell deserve to be shown to the world much more than they are. He's actually still around today, now working on portrait art pieces.
I think this is the perfect time for independence, Black independence, to pick up, get together, a studio, unite under one banner, and make a mark in this business.
But if there is an animator who has left a more iconic impact than them, it would be a more underground name in one Jeff Hale. He's done plenty of work around the scene, for the likes of the National Film Board of Canada, Peanuts animation director Bill Melendez, and most out of pocket, starring in this early Star Wars parody.
Fly along with Ham Salad and Chewchilla, the Wookiee monster, as they make their daring getaway.
But between all that, he went to the small animation house called Imagination Inc., where he was contracted to do a massive slew of Sesame bits, and those would just so happen to include some immortal staples of the show, which include the Ringmaster,
3 fabulous flying felines, cats to you, 7 wonderful wizards of the watery world, 12 frenzied finches will perform a fabulous fantasy of feathered flight,
the typewriter,
V. Why? Vacuum. No!
And of course, the pinball number count. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And when he wasn't immortalizing sound bites in your head, he would opt for something more high concept. Like, check out this beautifully done alphabet film of all these fairy tale designs. Or how about this one, about a boy getting lost and learning how he can get home. And because it's the 70s, it's accompanied with Yellow Submarine-esque visuals galore and smooth BGM.
Can you help me get unlost?
Try to remember everything you passed, but when you go back, make the first thing the last.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the one thing more psychedelic than that, this surreal but eye-grabbing montage of V words.
V. Vulture. Volcano. Vegetables? Vegetables.
And as if all his 70s work wasn't enough, he would later get another stint on the show in the late 80s under this other studio, Buzzco Associates. Except now, actually getting involved in writing some ditties of his own, composing a couple more, and even providing a recurring voice.
Hi everyone, it's sing-song time and I want you all to sing the bird song with me.
Man clearly got around. Looking at his character designs, and even the background art when it's there, his work definitely looks the most like a TV cartoon of the time. Very standard and geometric, but full of personality in the looks alone. There's a good balancing act of being budget conscious, while also providing just enough dimension to not look flat or stiff. It carries a sort of simplistic charm.
In the dark of the night, the moon shines bright. It shines through the window on me. It helps me see the cat on the wall, and the birds asleep in the tree.
Who would have thought some random animator on Charlie Brown and Transformers would have been one of the more recognized styles on such a preschool phenomenon? Here's someone whose career centered around gradually mastering a single aesthetic. Michael Sporn was among the young New York talent recruited by Richard Williams Studios for Raggedy Ann and Andy, a musical adventure in the late 70s, after spending some years working alongside John Hubley. Yep, what'd I tell ya, it's all connected. And both schools of influence, the unique detailed drawings to convey a storybook type look, and the low frame rate, somewhat minimal sketchiness, made him the perfect person to call if he had a children's book that you wanted to translate into animation.
6 music-filled tales from celebrated children's animator Michael Sporn.
If you watch storybook musicals on HBO, odds are you've seen at least one special he lent his services to. Mike Mulligan in his theme shovel is the one I have the fondest memories of, by the way. But he also took on similar work for Good Times Entertainment and a smattering of other clients. Before all that though, he spent much of the 80s honing his skills on the street, and it's arguably here where you can see the evolution of this style take place. His early shorts there were still undeniably full of that crayon aesthetic, and there were still some real standouts like this poem about mothers in different countries.
Soja, soja, mera sona. My precious one, now go to sleep. She sings in Hindi. We live in India. Hindi is one language that we speak.
But they were generally more funky or whimsical. But then, as the seasons went by, his ambitions visibly grew. Look at how dynamic the framing and presentation is in this one, about a stranger joining a ball game in Central Park, full of striking shadows, blobby crowds, and fun camera angles.
Except one boy who said, give him a chance, let's see what he can do. The stranger made a spectacular catch, it seemed he almost flew.
This became the norm of him for the rest of the run. The segments that most people remember from him are the series involving a bumbling bellhop where he is put to a job involving a number, be it helping 2 lost kids, or taking down 8 steamer trunks, or going through 18 tables to find the recipient of a phone call. These profiles almost look like something out of the New Yorker or something. And by the time we get to the end of the run, mainly consisting of another series of number films with a girl called Hortense, his storybook style has officially taken full force.
5 rooms danced around my room by the light of the moon. 5 rooms.
To the point where even a music video type segment putting a Lemmings song to visuals has a very simple but lavish feel to it. And it probably helps that the song itself is a bop.
26, 27, 28, 29.
30.
Put simply, Sporn is a classic story of an artist taking their influences and with practice, gradually developing it into an acclaimed style to call their own. Here's a style many who grew up with the show in the 90s will immediately recognize: Sally Cruikshank. Educated as an independent animator and taking inspiration from the likes of Max Fleischer and Dr. Seuss, she was at the time best known for her trippy, downright psychedelic short film, Quasi and the Quackadero.
People often ask me where my characters come from, and I sometimes wondered that myself. I read a lot of these Donald Duck and Uncle Scrooge comics when I was little, and the images of the money bin and of Donald Duck and the nephews and Uncle Scrooge all sunk into my subconscious and came out later not really looking like ducks to anyone but me.
Naturally, such an unforgettable style is bound to draw attention within the animation sphere, which paid off in 1988, where she would receive 3 songs from a handful of Sesame's main writers, Paul Jacobs, Chris Kerf, and Sarah Durkee.
Above it all, I love to fly. Above it all, there in the sky. We're in. We're out. We're in. We're out. Yes, every story has a beginning, middle, and an end. And when it's over, we can go back and tell it all again.
Turns out, she was quite a natural at translating existing music into colorful, creative, and downright mesmerizing animation, with a mix of people, anthroreptiles, sentient objects, and everything in between that live in this bizarro angular world that always has some amusing visual gag or just full surrealism going on, making it always a joy to look at. Everyone and everything is constantly morphing around, and there's such an emphasis on color to convey the feel of a scene. Sometimes also timing a key movement around a bar or instrument to only further sync up the audio-visual experience. Sally admitted to not even following the workshop's curriculum, and just drew whatever the heck she felt best suited the songs she was given, which was helped by her given near total creative freedom. This led to some really memorable music videos across most of the 90s that simply would not have hit as hard under anyone else, her personal favorite being the quiet jazz tune From Your Head, which fit her style like a glove.
I had a dream, had it lying fast asleep, down by where the willows weep, on a grassy bed. Dreams come from your head, from your head.
She even did her own number counting segment, where every number you see is a bizarre creature that goes beyond imagination itself.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Probably the trippiest thing she ever did for the show, actually. Near the end of her run there, she even started to get a little more experimental, working with digital tools in a hybrid remake of the Kermit the Frog song, Caribbean Amphibian.
Caribbean amphibian, he likes to hop in the tropical sea.
There's more of a roughness there for sure, especially with how some assets just kind of fly flatly over the screen, but her design style and general wit are still so clearly on display that it's still a fun watch.
The flying fish and the turtles, they've seen him hop where the pineapple grows. He likes to see all the islands, so island hopping he goes.
It's a shame the workshop stopped giving her material come the turn of the millennium, and that she hasn't done much notable work since. She's uploaded a few small personal projects on her YouTube, and in 2017 she did this scene for SpongeBob's Legend of Bikini Bottom. But much like Jim Simon, it seems these days she's shifted over to gouache paintings, which she has posted on Facebook and you can buy off Etsy. As you can see, her style has only gotten more outlandish, but the design and color mentalities are still on display even after all these years, and I love it. And to finish out the lineup, I'm going to cover someone part of a whole other subcategory altogether, cartoon creators. Yeah, with how much of a boom the 90s were for a bunch of graduate artists to leave their mark on the fast-evolving cable landscape, naturally a lot of them are going to have some overlap with the children's television workshop as well. Like those claymation shorts made by Hey Arnold creator and future PBS regular Craig Bartlett, one of which famously featured the football head.
Hello, Arnold. Hello, Arnold. Hello, Arnold.
You also had John Dilworth of Courage the Cowardly Dog fame, producing these simple, pantomime-heavy shorts starring his characters Noodles and Ned. And yes, this is what those weird caricatures were in the picture frames of that show. The more you know. Then you got those global thingy shorts by Jim Jenkins in the mid-2000s, which, yeah, checks out completely just looking at their faces. Those were cute too.
Play nice, yeah.
And at the studio level, you even got Pixar themselves, turning out a few shorts starring their future mascot Luxo Jr., headed by Andrew Stanton. Isn't that some history?
Front, back, 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 front. Side.
But the one in this line who left by far the biggest mark on the street is one Mo Willems, the man behind Sheep in the Big City, The Offbeats, and some best-selling book about a pigeon and a bus. Mo's actual shorts on the show were notable enough, often carrying the general feel of comic strip panels. Like Hear Me Out. There's something about how everything is staged, combined with the pose-heavy animation, and even the quaint dialogue delivery from everyone, that really evoke a Peanuts sort of feel to me, just more upbeat of course.
You wear a small octopus on your head?
Yes, I do.
I wear a big octopus on my head.
How do you do?
He even created one of the more remembered recurring animated characters of this period, Susie Kabloozy, who struck the right balance of perky, upbeat, and versatile to pop up basically everywhere she could.
Sing a song, sing out loud, sing out strong.
But see, unlike everyone else I mentioned here, he didn't just give us all these drawings, he actually was a key part of the series team itself, writing and directing many A Street Story from 1994 to 2002. And according to Mo himself, this was what ultimately convinced him to stick in the children's media business. His time there was even reflected in that aforementioned Sheep show, with multiple of the Muppet performers he worked with serving as recurring voices and several more in bit parts.
How do you make the perfect pecan punch for your perfect pecan punch party?
Now here's a picture of the little whippersnooper when he had huge spots all over his butt.
You can comb her hair, and you can take a comb and comb.
In essence, while with many of the artists I described before, you could say this show was when they were able to be at their most loose or at least serve as a benchmark in their career path, Mo is a case where their career was defined specifically by their time there.
Hello!
Giving us multiple cartoons and a children's lit icon in the years following. Just goes to show the sheer power this one little street was able to leave behind the scenes. Of course, all I have described in this one video does not even get into all the other, often one-off guest artists who would go on to become or already were big names in the animation game, or just gave us something incredibly unique in general. Who knows, if this ends up doing well enough, I could probably make this a recurring series and go over even more that I find really cool and worth commenting on. Let me know what you think. But more importantly, do use what you've learned here as a means to appreciate the true value of the art you watch, even in early childhood. It's the little creative touches and sensibilities each of these people applied in their works that, even if you didn't know it at the time, helped forge not just your childhood memories, but your taste in art going forward in life. Maybe even what you treasure today.